Have you ever sat in a conversation, listening to English, understanding almost everything, nodding along, and then someone turns to you and says, "So what do you think?" And everything goes blank.
The words disappear.
The words you knew just a moment ago are suddenly gone. Your mouth opens and nothing comes out. Or something comes out, but it sounds nothing like what you meant to say.
And the worst part, you understood everything they said. You knew the vocabulary, you have the knowledge, but speaking was a completely different story.
If that has ever happened to you, this episode is for you. Not because something is wrong with you, but because this experience, this exact frustration, is one of the most common experiences in the entire journey of learning English.
And today, we are going to talk about why it happens and what you can do about it, not with a list of grammar rules, but with honest conversation, real insight, and practical steps that actually work.
Welcome to English Flow Podcast. I'm Sarah.
And I'm William. And today, we are going to have a conversation that I think a lot of people need to hear.
A conversation that might change how you see yourself as an English learner.
Stay with us the whole episode because every part of this matters.
And if this podcast has ever helped you, please subscribe to English Flow Podcast, like this episode, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today.
We love every single one of our listeners. Now let us begin.
Let us start by saying something important. The gap between understanding English and speaking English, it is real. It is not in your imagination. It is not a sign that you are bad at languages.
It has a name?
In language learning, we call it the receptive and productive gap.
Receptive, productive.
Yes, receptive skills are the skills where language comes in. Listening and reading. You receive the language. You take it in.
And productive skills?
Productive skills are where language goes out. Speaking and writing. You produce the language. You create it.
And most English learners, their receptive skills are much stronger than their productive skills.
Much stronger, because we spend most of our learning time receiving, listening to podcasts, watching films, reading books, and very little time producing, actually speaking.
So the brain has absorbed a lot of English, but it is not practiced sending it back out.
Exactly. It is like filling a tank with water and then never opening the tap.
The water is there, but it never flows.
The water is there. It just needs a tap. It needs an opening. And that is what we are going to talk about today.
So if you understand English well, be proud of that. That is real progress, real learning. You have filled the tank. Now we work on the tap.
Let me tell you about a student I once had. Her name was Amira. She had been studying English for 6 years. She watched films in English every night. She read English novels. She understood nearly everything.
So she was very advanced.
Receptively, yes, advanced. But when she came to my class and I asked her to introduce herself, she froze. Her hands were trembling. She said in a very small voice, "My name is Amira," and stopped.
That is all she could say.
And afterwards she told me, I knew everything I wanted to say. I had all the words. But when I opened my mouth, it was like the words ran away.
The words ran away.
And I want you to understand something. Amira was not bad at English. She was not unintelligent. She was experiencing something that happens because speaking is fundamentally different from listening, in ways that most people never explain.
How is it different?
When you listen, you have time. The words arrive, you process them. If you miss something, the conversation continues and context fills the gap. There is no pressure on you to produce anything immediately. The language comes to you. But when you speak, you have to retrieve words from memory in real time. You have to arrange them into a sentence in real time. You have to manage your pronunciation in real time. And you have to do all of that while also listening to the other person and managing your nerves at the exact same time.
That is genuinely a lot happening at once.
It is an enormous cognitive load, and nobody gives learners enough credit for how hard that actually is.
So if speaking feels harder than understanding, it is not because you are failing. It is because speaking is genuinely harder, neurologically, cognitively, and emotionally.
You are not failing. You are doing something difficult, and there is a real difference between those two things.
And Sarah, I want to add something, because I think there is another reason the gap exists, and it is not just neurological. It is emotional.
The fear.
The fear. I have felt this myself. The fear of making a mistake. the fear of sounding silly, the fear that people will judge your accent, your grammar, your vocabulary.
The fear that if you speak, you will prove to everyone that you are not as good as they thought.
Or worse, that you will prove it to yourself.
That is such an honest thing to say.
Because when you are listening, no one can see your limitations. You can nod and smile, and no one knows what you understood or did not understand. But the moment you speak,
you are visible, fully visible. And that vulnerability, the feeling of being seen and possibly found lacking, that is terrifying for a lot of people.
And so they stay silent, not because they cannot speak, but because silence feels safer than imperfection.
And that silence, while it feels protective, is actually the thing that keeps the gap open. Every time you choose silence over speaking, the fear grows a little stronger.
And every time you speak,
even imperfectly,
the fear shrinks a little.
Every single time.
Can I tell you something that happened to me? Something I have not talked about much?
Please.
A few years ago, I was at an international conference. There were people from many different countries. And at dinner, I was sitting next to a woman from Brazil. Her English was not perfect. Her grammar was sometimes wrong. Her accent was strong.
And
she was the most captivating person at the table. She told stories, she laughed, she asked questions, she made everyone feel included. Her English was imperfect, but her presence was extraordinary.
Her presence was extraordinary.
And I sat there thinking about all the times I had stayed quiet because I was afraid of making a mistake, all the connections I had not made, all the conversations I had not had.
Because you were waiting to be perfect.
Because I was waiting to be perfect, and she was not waiting. She just showed up with her imperfect English and her full heart, and she lit up the whole room.
And I want you to hear that. Fluency is not the goal of a conversation. Connection is.
Fluency is not the goal of a conversation. Connection is.
And you can connect in imperfect English, in broken sentences, with the wrong tense and a strong accent. You can still connect. You can still be understood. You can still matter in that conversation.
That woman at the conference, I still think about her. She taught me more about language that evening than any classroom ever had.
And this brings us to something really important, something that I think a lot of English learners are not told clearly enough.
What is that?
Passive learning alone will not make you a speaker. Watching films in English, listening to podcasts, reading books, these are all wonderful. These build your receptive skills beautifully.
But they do not build speaking.
They do not build speaking, because speaking is a muscle, and you build a muscle by using it, not by watching other people use it.
Like going to a gym and only watching other people lift weights.
Exactly. You can watch 100 people lift weights. You can study the technique. You can understand perfectly how it is done. But until you pick up the weight yourself, your muscles will not grow.
Speaking is the same.
Speaking is the same. And the reason so many learners understand more than they can speak is that they have spent years building the receptive muscle and almost no time building the productive muscle.
And the productive muscle, the speaking muscle, it only grows one way.
By speaking.
Just speaking.
Just speaking. Even badly, even nervously, even slowly, even with mistakes. Every imperfect sentence is a rep. Every word you push through the fear is the weight going up.
I like that image. Every imperfect sentence is a rep.
So if you have been consuming English, wonderful. Keep going. But add producing English to your daily practice. Even for 5 minutes. Even alone. Even in a whisper. It counts. And now, the part everyone needs. What actually helps close that gap?
Let us go.
First, output daily. Even if it is tiny. Even if it is alone.
How?
Narrate your day out loud, in English, while you make breakfast, while you walk to work, while you wash the dishes. I am making coffee. I need to remember to call her later. I feel tired today, but I am going to push through.
This is what we call thinking out loud, and it does something powerful. It trains your brain to retrieve English words and form sentences in real time, without an audience, without pressure.
And every day you do it, the retrieval gets a little faster, a little more automatic, a little less conscious effort.
Second, stop aiming for perfect sentences. Aim for finished sentences.
This one is so important.
A lot of learners start a sentence and then stop in the middle because they cannot find the exact word, and they go silent or they start over, and the flow is broken.
Instead, finish the sentence, even if you have to use a simpler word, even if the grammar is not perfect. A finished, imperfect sentence is infinitely more valuable than a perfect sentence that was never said.
Instead of stopping because you cannot remember the word furniture, say, the things in the room, the objects you sit on and sleep on. Keep talking. Go around the word.
Go around the word. That is a fluency skill that native speakers use all the time. You do not need every word. You need the flow.
Third, record yourself.
This one makes people uncomfortable, but it is one of the most powerful things you can do.
Why does it help?
Because when you record yourself, you are speaking without an audience. No fear of judgment, no pressure. Just you and your phone.
And when you listen back, you hear yourself, really hear yourself, and it is often better than you thought.
Most learners are shocked by how good they sound when they listen back. They expected the worst, and instead, they hear a real person speaking real English.
And that moment, hearing yourself and thinking, actually, that was okay. That moment does something to your confidence that nothing else can do.
Fourth, find low-stakes speaking practice.
Low stakes?
Low stakes means there is nothing to lose. The situation doesn't matter. The stakes are low.
Like talking to yourself, or talking to a language exchange partner, or leaving a voice comment in an English learning community.
Or even just speaking to your pet, or to a plant, or to your reflection in the mirror. It sounds silly, but the brain doesn't care. The brain just practices the muscle.
My cat has heard so much English recently.
Your cat's receptive skills are probably excellent by now.
Fifth, embrace the imperfection, publicly.
This is the hardest one, but it is the most important.
What do you mean by publicly?
I mean, at some point, you have to speak to a real person in English. Not just alone, not just to your cat, to a real person.
And yes, you might make mistakes. You will make mistakes.
And that is not only okay, it is necessary, because the brain learns to speak in real conversations, by having real conversations.
And most people, when they hear a non-native speaker making small mistakes, they do not judge them. They admire them. They think, this person is brave. This person is trying.
Because they are brave. Because trying is brave. Because opening your mouth in a second language, with all the fear and all the uncertainty, and speaking anyway, that is one of the bravest things a person can do. And every single person listening right now is doing exactly that. Every time you speak, every time you try, you are being brave. I want to tell you about a moment, a specific moment, when I watched someone cross the gap.
Tell me.
I had a student, Carlos. He had been learning English for 4 years. He understood everything, but he rarely spoke in class. When I called on him, he would look down, give one-word answers, and go back to silence.
The silence felt safer.
The silence felt safer. One day, I asked the class to talk about something they were proud of, something in their life, personal, meaningful.
And what happened?
Carlos raised his hand, something he had never done before, and he said, "I want to speak." And he stood up, and he talked for 2.5 minutes about his grandmother, about how she had raised him after his parents separated, about how she used to sing to him in the evenings, about how she had passed away the year before, and how proud he was to be her grandson.
2.5 minutes.
His grammar was not perfect. His pronunciation was sometimes difficult to follow, but the room was completely silent. Everyone was listening, because what he was saying mattered, because it was real, because it was him.
The language became a bridge, not a barrier.
The language became a bridge. And after he sat down, he looked up, and he said, "That was easier than I thought."
That was easier than I thought. After 4 years of silence.
And I believe, with everything I have, that there is a Carlos moment waiting for every single person listening right now. A moment when you will open your mouth, and the words will come, and you will think, "That was easier than I thought."
That moment is coming for you. It is.
Sarah, what do you want listeners to take away from today more than anything else?
I want them to understand that understanding English and speaking English are two different skills, and having one does not automatically give you the other, but the other is absolutely within reach.
And I want them to know that the fear they feel, the freeze, the blank, that is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of caring. It is a sign that this matters to them.
And things that matter to us, they are worth being uncomfortable for.
Worth being imperfect for.
The gap between understanding and speaking, you can close it. Not overnight, not with one perfect lesson, but with daily small moments of output, of trying, of speaking, of pushing through the fear.
Every sentence you speak, no matter how imperfect, is a step. Every word you push out, even when your voice shakes, is a step.
And steps, taken every day, no matter how small, lead somewhere. They always lead somewhere.
Sometimes I still feel the freeze after years of doing this. A difficult conversation, an unfamiliar situation, and the blank comes.
And
I breathe, and I speak, because I know now that the blank is not permanent. It is just a pause, and pauses are okay in any language.
pauses are okay in any language. And now, your challenge. And this one is important. Please do not skip it.
Today, within the next 24 hours, speak English out loud for 2 minutes. Not in a lesson, not at school, just you.
Narrate what you are doing. Describe your room. Talk about your day. Tell yourself a story. Say the thoughts in your head in English out loud.
2 minutes, that is all. You do not need an audience. You do not need perfect grammar. You just need to open your mouth and let English come out.
And then come back and leave a comment below. Tell us, how did it feel? Was it harder than you thought? Easier? Did you freeze? Did you keep going?
We want to know. We genuinely want to know.
Because every time you do this, you are one step closer to the moment when someone asks, "What do you think?" And instead of going blank, you take a breath and you speak.
And you surprise yourself.
And you surprise yourself. That moment is coming, and it is closer than you think.
We are almost at the end of today's episode, and I want to say one last thing.
Go ahead.
To everyone who has ever understood English perfectly and felt like a fraud because they could not speak it, you are not a fraud. You are a learner, and learners are brave.
The gap between understanding and speaking is not a wall. It is a bridge, and you are already on it. Every time you listen, every time you try, every time you show up, you are walking across that bridge.
And one day, soon, you will look back and realize you have crossed it.
Not perfectly, but completely.
Please subscribe to English Flow Podcast. Give today's episode a like, and share it with someone who is sitting in that gap right now. Someone who understands but feels like they cannot speak. Share this with them because they need to hear it.
We are so thankful for this community, for every listener, every voice, every brave attempt. I'm Sarah.
And I'm William.
Keep speaking, keep trying, keep flowing.